All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about like the first major battles in World War One. You're going to see how the fighting progresses and basically what causes these battles to go on for, some of them almost a whole year. One battle. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to our warm up. All right, so here it is for you. The first question asks you to basically mention, what do you notice about these two pictures? What do they have in common? What are the different? You know, so just go through these two pictures. Yes, both of them are aerial view, a view from the sky. Both are very real pictures. They're not drawn or anything like that. Um, and tell me, what do you think? Okay. The other question asks you the colored picture, the one with a lot of green on it. Should we preserve that land, where the trenches are? Should we make it like a monument to those people who served and things like that so future generations can see for themselves, like, man, this is where your great great grandpa, fought and things like that? Or do you see it as like, what, hey, if they need that land for to build houses, to make an airport, have a train go through that area, so easier to travel from one spot to the other, they should. What do you think? Should it be preserved, or should it be, hey, if they need the land, wipe all that place area clean, you know, and put up what you need to put up? Okay. So tell me what you think. All right. So pause the video, write your responses, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So the first battle of World War One happened on August 23rd, 1914. This is like the first battle. Okay. 75,000 British soldiers were overpowered by 150,000 German soldiers. Okay. They clashed, they fought, and the British lost 60,000 soldiers in that first battle. So already from the get go, it's kind of like, ooh, this is not good. So yeah, it was pretty bad. The first major battle occurred at the Battle of Tannenberg on August 26th of 1914. What happened was Russian troops attacked German troops. Okay, they caught them by surprise. But here's the thing: Russia sent an unencrypted message through the radio, and the Germans changed their strategy. Now, somebody in class asked me, "What does that mean? Unencrypted?" Because thing is, usually what happens is a lot of people they use codes. They either use numbers to then translate to words. Hold on 1 second, please. Sorry about that. Or they actually use words to mean other words. So instead of saying like, "Oh, I made it home," they might say, "The eagle has landed." You know, um, things like that. But the Russians basically on an open radio line say, "We're moving over here." So the Germans, they heard this message, so they're like, "Okay, well, if you're moving here, we'll come around here and attack you from this way where you're not expecting it." And that's what happened. Um, 30,000 Russians were killed, and another 90,000 were taken prisoner. So already in 3 days, in two particular battles, the Germans have killed 90,000 soldiers and captured another 90,000. Um, so things are looking good for them so far. All right. Um, the next battle, major one, was the First Battle of Marne. Okay, it lasted for 6 days. What happened was, again, the Germans were riding high. They're feeling good. They're feeling, hey, we're knocking these places down. Um, so they feel, hey, we can go after Paris right now. Because they know if they get to Paris, right, they take over the French capital, that they will then have basically total control of France, that France will crumble. because you basically took the heart out of them, especially so early in the war. So that's what they wanted to do. They came through and they attacked, they attacked, they attacked, but France was able to counterattack and push them back. So if you look at that map right here, the little dashed line, that's as far back as the Germans got. And then the French basically pushed them back. And where the solid red line is, that's where they were at. Now, the best analogy I can give, it's like in football. The other team, they start at the 10-yard line, they just march downfield all the way down to the other 10, and they get like back-to-back sacks. So now they're back at like the 30, 35-yard line, and they decide to kick a field goal. So some people will say, hey, they stopped them. Good job. They did a great job. They let them score a touchdown. And some people will be like, oh my God, they just ran down our throats and we got lucky and they didn't take as much. Just a matter of your perspective. But here's the other bad thing about this. So if you look where it says like Luxembourg, you see that line, that red line, kind of like a purple reddish line. That is the border of France. Okay. Between that solid red line and that other line, that purplish line, their area, that's where a lot of French factories are. And now they're in the control of Germany. So a lot of their war effort stuff, making guns, ammunition, things like that, it's now in the hands of the Germans. So yeah. All right. So here's a little scenario for you. You are in control of 5,000 soldiers, which would be known as a brigade. Okay. You've won two major battles and the enemy is retreating. There's about like 2,000 of them. They're running away. Your men are tired. Okay. But you know you can destroy those 2,000 soldiers if you guys push through. Here's the other part. Your enemy goes into a part of a country that you haven't explored yet. So you don't know if there's a town nearby. You don't know what's on that undiscovered area. Okay. What do you do? Do you chase after them? Do you let your soldiers rest? Do you send some recon soldiers to go check it out, scout ahead? Do you surround that area? You know, the area you haven't discovered. Do you surround that area so that they don't like try to circle back or things like that? What would you suggest? What would you do? Okay, so write your response. Pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so the first Battle of Press occurred on October 19th and didn't finish till October 22nd. Or sorry, November 22nd. This was known as the nickname was the Race to the Sea. Because here's the thing, Belgium had a nice little coastline area where they had access to the English Channel and the North Sea. So 600,000 Germans tried to get there so they can claim it, and another 420,000 allies. They clash together and they fight for 3 weeks. Thing is, both sides start to lose a lot of men. So what happens is they start digging trenches. They start digging holes. So when artillery shells are coming down and they hit the ground, the soldiers are safe because they're in a hole. They're in the trenches. Here's the bad thing. Once they're in the trenches, nobody really gains any land. Because again, they are in holes. They don't want to come up because again, with bombings and with gunfire, they have to keep low, but keep an eye on the other side. Okay. Now the Battle of Verdun, October 21st through December 18th. This is considered one of the longest battles in World War I. On both sides, they lost about 600,000 men. What ended up happening is the Germans tried to take a fort from the French army. Problem is, they spent so many men trying to attack that fort, trying to take it over, that eventually they were like, you know what, it's no use. Let's bring our soldiers back. This is when the French started gaining back some of the land they lost. Okay. Now, instead of saying, hey, let's keep fighting, two things made them stop. One, it was wintertime, and that area is very cold, especially when they're in water and things like that. That water is freezing. And if you got your feet in there, yeah, it just might get frostbite and things like that. The other thing that happened was there was more fighting elsewhere. So they would basically say, hey, you guys stay behind. You guys are the skeleton crew. You guys make sure that the other side doesn't advance. The rest of us are going to go fight in the south, or the north, whatever the next battle was. Okay. So that's why that battle basically just abruptly ended. It was because again, winter came and there was more fighting to go elsewhere, so they left. All right, so the Battle of Gallipoli happened from February 19th to January 9th, 1916. Um, this is where the first true major beach landing happened. The French and British were like, you know what? These Ottomans are coming through Europe and things like that. Why don't we take the fight to them? And they tried to take what is modern day Turkey from the Ottoman Empire. Problem was, the Ottomans were kind of preparing for that. They kind of, I guess they figured, hey, if we have a vulnerable spot behind us on the coastline, let's put some fort there, let's put some soldiers, just in case somebody tries to attack us through the water. That's exactly what happened. The idea was to take control of that sea route and to take over the city of Constantinople. Constantinople back in the day was the trading hub of the world. Places from like Britain and France, they'd bring their goods and services, stuff like that, to Constantinople, and places like China, India, they would send traders over to Constantinople where they would then trade, do exchanges, buy things from one another. So it was a trading hub of the world for the longest time, and it did have an importance, a strategic importance in the war. Okay, but the thing is, the Ottomans were prepared for this, and 180,000 soldiers died, including 28,000 Australians. Now, in class, someone asked, "You didn't mention Australians before." No, I didn't. But here's the thing: because Britain went to war, their little colonies went to war too. They have colonies on places like Australia. You know, the French have colonies in Vietnam. The British have colonies in India. So they basically said, "Hey, we need your soldiers to fight this war," and that's what happened. The Battle of Somme was from July 1st to November 13th, 1916. This is where the single bloodiest one-day battle in World War One happened. Was during this battle. 20,000 British soldiers died. Another 37,000 were captured. Or sorry, not captured, wounded. But this is also the first battle where tanks, as you see in this picture, were used. Okay. Now the thing is, like I told the people in class, the doors were so narrow, so small that people had to like go in angle wise, and they had to like kind of like duck in. Um, Tanks were not like how we have them now, where the tanks are basically almost indestructible. They're massive, they're fast, things like that. If you shoot a gun in it, at it, it's gonna bounce off and things like that. But these ones, they could take a gunfire from a gun, regular gun, but a machine gun, it's probably gonna tear through. Okay. At the Battle of Somme, when it was all said and done, about 1 million people died. So yeah. So if you notice, the number of deaths keeps going higher, higher, and higher. All right, so here's your next question. Like I said, if you notice, most of these battles also they took over like 3 months and things like that. So it took a long time. If the like high command people were to ask you, they hired you as an advisor and they said, what should we do? Should we fight out in the open or should we fight in trenches? Okay. What would you recommend? Okay. Now on this, you'll see some pros and cons, the goods and bads. So like finding out the open, which would be like basically out and about, hiding behind buildings, things like that. That's out in the open. You know, what are some good things? Well, one, the battles won't last that long. Two, you might win quicker. Three, soldiers don't have to carry as much to battle because again, they're traveling, they're moving, so they really shouldn't have to carry all that much. It's just going to hold them back. Okay. Some of the bad things about this is more soldiers will die quickly because again, they might be having cover, but bombs can drop and blow up and things like that. And they're out there, they could get hit. Even though there might be some cover, hey, some of that wall might just collapse. The wall might explode, taking them out. The other thing is you might lose faster, depending on how good your soldiers are. How good the plan is. You might win faster, but you also might lose faster. And last one, backup won't have time to come to you. It's not like you can wait 3 days in a battle out in the open waiting for your reinforcement. Chances are you won't make it that long. Okay. Now, fighting in a trench, some of the good things, your men will last longer. Okay. Because again, they're protected, they're in a hole. You have more of a chance of a counterattack. So if one side's attacks, you have a chance to make it a plan, come up with an idea, and then boom, hit them back. Okay. There's more of a chance that reinforcement might come because again, you're in there for months. So if you need extra men and they say, hey, it's going to take a week, well, no problem. We've been here for 2 months. We could be here for another month or 3 months. So yeah, just bring them. The other thing is the bad thing. With that being said, the war is prolonged. The war goes on longer. Um, Food, fresh water, ammunition, it's not going to last if you're in a trench because if people are just sitting around waiting for the other side to attack, they might run out of food. They might run out of fresh water. Same thing with ammunition. They might not have enough. And the other thing is, there's a high chance you might get sick and get a disease. Um, if you're in a hole with a bunch of mud, you know, shoulder to shoulder with people, and one person gets sick, then chances are the next person, the next person, and the next person are going to get sick too. So, again, with that being said, which would you recommend? Fighting out in the open or fighting in the trench? And then why? Why would you say that? Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So here's the thing. America was actually loaning money to both sides, to like Germany and Britain. Um, Problem was they put a limit on Germany. They said, hey, we can only lend you like $5 million, $10 million, whatever it may have been. And then they tell Britain, oh, sorry, we can't loan you any more money. But they would actually give them more money. They would lend them more money. They just kept it a hush hush. Um, Britain actually blocked the North Sea. So any ships trying to get into Germany, they would be captured. They would inspect them, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, here's ammunition. We're gonna take that. That's contraband. Ooh, bullets. We'll take that. Oh, food. They can even consider food as contraband, and they take that. Okay. Now, Germany is like, oh, you want to play that game? No problem. They knew, because remember, they had the factories in France that made a lot of the war weapons. They knew that France and Britain needed the United States for food, equipment, and other types of supplies. So they basically said, if we stop the shipments of food and stuff like that going to Britain and France, we could starve them out. we could really starve them out. So February 1915, Germany basically sends an announcement to the world saying any ships going to Britain, France, um, we're gonna shoot you down. We're gonna destroy you with our U-boats. Okay, there won't be any warning because this is your warning. Okay, do not send ships to Britain and France. So May 7th, 1915, the German U-boat sank the Lusitania, which is that picture up on top there. Nearly 1,200 people died, including 128 Americans. A lot of Americans were really, really upset. And some were like, well, I mean, Germany did say, but I mean, yeah, those were a lot just innocent people in there. I mean, it wasn't a military ship. It was like basically like the Titanic, just passengers. The next one on March 1916, a U-boat basically destroyed a French passenger ship called the Suez, and that's a picture on the bottom right there. As you can see, it didn't sink, but it was basically destroyed in half, and um, it limped itself to the nearest port. And yeah, a lot of Americans were like, we should go to war with Germany. The needle was moving that way. So, in order for Germany to say, hey, no, the United States, don't join, we don't want you to join. What they basically did was they said, okay, how about this? We write up this document called the Suez Pledge. And what that would say is if we see a passenger ship coming, we're going to pop out and we're going to say, hey, don't come any closer. We're here. We're going to inspect you. Make sure you have no weapons and things like that going to Britain and France. Okay? We're not going to shoot without warning anymore. We're going to pop up and say, hey, stop. Okay? So the needle then went from down here to a little bit back more towards the center. But Americans were still upset with Germany about that. Again, Germany didn't want America to be joining the war. And that leads to our next question. Why do you think the Germans didn't want the US to get involved in the war? What are some possible factors or advantages that the US would bring to the Allies, to Britain, to France, to Russia, to Belgium, and things like that? How would they help them? What advantage would the United States give to those countries? Okay, so think about it and explain what those advantages are, and okay. So once you finish this question, that's it. That's the end of this lesson. Hopefully you learned something new. If by chance you did not finish or didn't get this map picture, okay, be sure you get that from me, okay? Uh, Label the countries. When you're all got them all labeled, then you're gonna color them, okay? If you need the instructions, I'll tell you them right there and then. But it basically tells you right there. Allied countries, central countries, you're just coloring which countries are all allies, which ones are the central, which ones are neutral, things like that. Okay. So once you're done, that's it. All right. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. All right. So you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.